Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and chat to amazing humans about their stories and their journeys with mental health. For this episode, I'm so happy to introduce Debbie John to the conversation. Welcome, Debbie.
Hello.
Hello, lovely to have you. As always, brief introduction from me, how we got to this recording. It was a surprise, of course. So it's a nice surprise because we don't really know that much about each other. But when I started to find out more about the work that you're doing, I was really intrigued. There's some wonderful stuff that you're into. I'm not going to share what you're doing because I want you to share that. So it was lovely to see sort of an opportunity to talk to somebody about something different that we haven't talked about in the podcast. So welcome. You do a proper introduction. Let people know a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hello. Well, I now call myself a play pollinator because I'm all about spreading the importance and awareness of the power of play in our lives, not just towards others, ourselves, but also within our brain, because we now know that play is this optimum state for learning. We've got lots of research out there when it comes to the education system, but we've also now got people like play therapists that work with children to help them process their experiences through their natural language, which is play. And so that's what I did after being a trained music teacher in the secondary system. And then I went down to primary and early years. I was an early years teacher. And then I really saw this crisis in mental health in the education system. I was then working in the community as a youth worker and put into positions where I was working with young people who had been abused and things like that with no formal therapeutic qualifications. So I went to my boss and I said, I need to train. I'm working with some really high level dramatic experiences, and I want to be safe for our young people. I want to be the best I can be, and I don't want to cause further damage or harm. So I started my training when I was about 37. So I did a postgrad at 37 with sort of primary aged two girls that I have. They're now 15 and 17. So I've got two girls. I had children quite young, and yes, and then things progress from there. So as I trained as a play therapist, I had some incredible experiences myself, because you have to go through a lot of therapy to become a therapist yourself and supervision, but also seeing results in the therapy room, children who were with selective mutism, ASD, children who had experienced domestic abuse, who had gone through a family breakdown, all sorts of things. It was incredible. However, you could only see one child at a time, and it was okay for me to model something called secure attachment, so being that safe person. However, I wasn't living with them 24/7. I only saw them 1 hour a week. And what was happening for the rest of the time? How are we supporting the parents in this process? And so I started to then train in attachment focused therapy through play, so attachment play. And I also then studied in some other coaching modalities so that I could really work with the whole family system until I was actually just working with adults again. So I kind of did this sort of full circle and created something that I could use in this way.
Amazing. Wow, that's a lot of experience in there, of course, and the learning and the journey and everything else. And sort of the first big question I want to ask you is sort of the why. What drove you down to that path of thinking, right, this is what I can become very very good at, and I can share and I can use and I can support. What were the drivers for you, Debbie? Sorry.
Well, I remember being out in France doing this really intensive sort of 15-day where you're just immersed and you have to get really deep and you have to learn all this sort of play therapy techniques, and realizing at so many points of that training, I wish I knew this when my children were young. So that was one of the things. And then the guilt started to arise. I didn't do this, I didn't do that. Oh no. And I shouted at them and I did this. And then and so this guilt started to arise. So I had to deal with that. And thankfully I had an amazing supervisor who I still have today. And she's like, Deb, you did the best you could with what you knew at the time. So there was that side of things. But then there was the other side of things of being a very anxious human myself. I was brought up in a really religious kind of community, which is actually very loving and accepting community. I was quite lucky in that regard. However, when it came to worrying and anxiety and any kind of training in mental health, we were quite lacking in that area. So I was told, just don't worry. Just don't worry, Deb. Don't worry. And that was it. I wasn't given any strategies, any tools, except for prayer. And prayer and meditation did work for me, and music. So I was very involved in the music scene there. I'd play with lots of bands, and then I would write my own music as I grew up. I'd sit at the piano and I'd play, and suddenly I'd feel my whole body calm down and think, oh, this kind of works, to the point where you're at the GCSE revising, come down to the piano, play for 10 minutes, go up and revise, come down to the piano and play, because it was just that thing that worked for me. Wasn't very good at articulating how I felt, didn't have the language a lot of the time. However, when I wrote lyrics, that's when the way I was feeling would come out, and I'd use metaphor, and so I became a songwriter. Because of that being maybe something that just really helped me at the time. So my personal journey has kind of shaped where I want to take people. So I'm now really helping overwhelmed parents who can't see the wood for the trees, who are highly anxious, help them to find these grounding activities through pausing and finding out what works for them. And also working with traumatized families who have been displaced, experienced real trauma, and trying to support the whole system, not just the child.
Yeah, I think, well, and I think that's an amazing approach to it, and I think it is one that is really missing a lot, isn't it? And I think you made a comment, and I just sort of repeat what you said. I wish I knew this when my children were younger. It's a real risk right now, isn't it? There's so many families, and we had a conversation before we recorded this, and I share my story publicly, and we talked about that as well, and there is so much of that in my life of I wish I knew what was going on before things changed. How do you sort of receive feedback from those people you work with? What sort of feedback do they give you when you're helping support them through these programs?
Well, I have the kind of, oh my goodness, it works. Like when I started not working with the child and working with the parent, I'll give you one of my first early case studies. Was a single mum, hairdresser, wanting to have help for her child who was sort of 5, had anger issues. There had been a split in the family a few years earlier. She's like, he's got anger issues. I need to put him into therapy with you. Can you sort out his anger, please? I was like, okay, well, I can do therapy with him. It will probably take him 6 to 8 sessions just to get to know me. And then he will probably start through play to process how he's doing, and we'll start to see the results from then. It'll probably take maybe 15 sessions, might be 25, we don't know. Or I can give you some strategies, which included some games and activities that she could play, and some approaches, and just tweaking a few things that she was doing. Help me to understand him, talk to me about him, and then let's see what happens. And so I had a session where she told me what was going on. She decided, okay, I'll go with this. She had a session where she told me about his behaviors and the background, and we explored that. And I gave her a couple of games and activities to try out and some approaches. She came back the second session going, like, I've seen the difference already, and this happened, and this happened, and and he didn't do this, and then this happened, and then the game you told me, this is the game you told me, I did that, but then I changed it, and we did this, and I'm like, That's brilliant. I love that. You are adapting it because you know him more than I do. You are the expert of the child. I'm just facilitating this. I'm sharing some data. I'm sharing some research with you. Let's explore this together. I'm coming alongside, but you know your child. Comes back for the third time, excuse me. You know, a coughing fit.
Yeah, no.
And she said, and that child 2 weeks later, oh, his behavior had completely stopped. He'd had his anger outbursts had stopped. His behavior at school had improved. They were communicating, and she had all these tools that she was pulling out of her toolbox that she could use appropriately. And I've never heard from her since. And she knows she can contact me. So that was years ago. And then it's a story after story after story, because they have that relationship. Now, it's not always appropriate. Sometimes children experience violence from their parents or abuse. And we always need qualified experts who can work with children, specifically trained to work with children. And it's a long process, and it should be. However, there are so many occasions where a bit of psychoeducation goes a long way. And that's why I set up Play Healing, to give adults that piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, I find it fascinating, and you're absolutely right. It's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of people will think about the young person needs the support, the therapy, or whatever it is, the intervention that needs to take place. Whereas actually, as parents, and looking at this as a parent, we're both parents on here, of course, sometimes we need to understand how we interact with our young people as well. And it is fascinating. I see that a lot as well from the work that I do, albeit I don't work directly with parents in my work. But I just, you're opening my mind to different actual perspectives that I hadn't considered. So thank you.
That's all right. And I think the other thing was that I didn't realize when I created this model, this pause, play, connect model, the 3 words, pause, play, connect. We're all built for connection. Yes. Play is the child's language. It actually should always be our language too, as far as we should never stop playing. We only grow old because we stop playing, as a quote. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So play builds connection, whether that's a playful smile, a comment, or a whole activity. But we must pause to regulate ourselves, to tune into that situation, to tune into, where am I at right now? Because one of the big learning curves that I went through as a therapist was my emotional state can really affect the person in front of me. And as parents, when our children do struggle, and they do, you and I know this, I have 2 teenagers, they've had their absolute struggles at times. When I start to become anxious about the behaviors and try to fix it and think I should have an answer, or this shouldn't be happening because I gave them this, or this, why, what's going on? You're trying to work out the why. That anxiety can actually make things worse. And we can't then tune into that child and give them the love and connection that they need, and give ourselves the empathy and the love and the time.
So it seems like we've lost Debi somewhere along the way. A very interesting, insightful conversation as well. And so it's such a shame that we've just lost Debi from the screen. I don't know where she's gone. Maybe she will be back very shortly. But it is absolutely fascinating listening to sort of the perspectives that she's sharing. Debi's business is called Play Healing. I will drop all the details and links to Play Healing into this recording as well, so that anybody who's willing or wants to know more about the work that Debi is doing out there, helping parents, helping families through play, supporting people, you'll be able to access that. Apologies again, we seem to have lost Debi. She may come back in a moment. She may come running back into the room. I fingers crossed, hope that she does. But we do seem to have lost her just for the moment. So it's an unfortunate situation. The technology, unfortunately, out of our control. Maybe she's playing with me. Maybe she's doing this to play a game on me. Who knows? Would be nice to think that was the case, wouldn't it? But fingers crossed we might get her back shortly. I will just keep padding for a moment just to say, if anybody out there would like to participate participate in the recording of any future episodes of the Matt Holman Talks Mental Health podcast, you're more than welcome. Please get in touch. I'm always looking for amazing humans who want to talk about their journeys and their stories, who want to share a little bit more about where they are, what they're doing. So please feel free. And it looks like, fingers crossed, we have Debi back in the room. Debi, I was doing some padding there for you. I just presented or talked about your business, gave people sight of that, just talked about inviting people to the podcast as well. Welcome back. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm so sorry.
I thought you were playing with me. I actually did say that. I think she's playing with me. She's gone hiding somewhere. So welcome back, Debi. Gosh. Oh, heart failure. I can be all right now. I'll be okay.
Oh, I've just lost my train of thought there. But hopefully whatever I was saying made sense.
100%. And I think what I was reflecting on when you weren't there was the fact that this is a really interesting topic for us as parents to really try to understand more about this element of play. And what I think is really fascinating as well is you mentioned that thing about we talked about it before the recording. I think it was before the recording, around a lot of parents don't see that time to play, see play
yeah.
as an adult life anymore. And can you talk about that just a little bit with us?
Yeah, so it's like, I play football or go and play. We hear that a lot from parents, but play is this broad, beautiful noun that we can explore for the rest of our lives. It's something that is so encompassing, and one person's play could be someone's hell. I mean, someone would love to play with clay, and then someone would hate the texture of clay. I've had people who love carpentry, and people who would never been seen dead in that kind of situation. I think it's really important for us to not be too restrictive, especially when we're talking about corporates and companies and adults. We often do, let's do a social event, and let's go out for drinks and socialize, or let's all play golf, or let's all do rowing, or let's all. When do I see business leaders pause and really look at the needs of their team? Because you might have had Mary who's lost her mum recently, or you might have someone in a wheelchair that can't actually access the rowing boats, or you might have how inclusive is it just to do sort of a whitewash for activities and think that it's going to be fun for everyone? Because we can put our own story, can't we, as therapists on that person if we're not careful. And same with play. We can put our own preferences, and that gets in the way of actually building real, meaningful connection. So that's again why this pause, play, connect model, when I go into corporates and I work with adults, we pause first. We look at the team, we look at the dynamic, because every team is different. I mean, after 20 years in the classroom, I can be teaching 5 different year 9 classes, and every class is different. I could be doing the same topic, but it lands differently, and it goes on into business world, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And I think that's the next level, isn't it? The business world, like you say, full circle, coming around, talking to adults, playing with adults. How are you finding sort of corporate reaction to the model? Because I think this model is really great. And I'm intrigued always by how it lands, and the sort of again, feedback, isn't it? It's all about
feedback. I love feedback. I'm all about those Google forms at the end of a talk and stuff. Yeah. So often what lights me up is when I have someone saying, I'm now going to implement pause, play, connect into my life. I've seen the need of why I need to pause more. A lot of people say, I don't feel so guilty anymore. And I'm like, yes, that is the change I want to hear. I want to see that the guilt goes down, because we understand how we work. We understand how we tick. We think, that's what's triggering the fight or flight response. That's indicating that I need to do more of why. That's maybe why my child's doing that. I understand why I need to maybe pull back at that point, or let's distract them with something different, or so it's how to be more flexible and responsive in life, how to enjoy life, how to thrive again, and find that balance that we all so desire.
Yeah, I definitely, I think so. So how do you pause, play, and connect? What do you do?
How do I pause? Yeah, I pause by going for like a time out in nature. Sometimes I'll just sit with a cup of tea in the garden, or I will do some meditation. But when I'm in business, in a business day, it could just be 1 second, just taking that breath. It could just be looking up, catching sight of the clouds outside, or just doing a body scan, where you can do a body scan. Where's the tension in my, I find I'm really working on my breath at the moment. I find my rib cage drops sometimes. So if my rib cage has dropped, it's only a very small movement, but that means my diaphragm's not working effectively. I'm breathing more shallow, not getting enough oxygen to my body. So it's those little tweaks and those little things that you can notice, that mindfulness, that can have a massive effect on my well-being. Playing, well, I obviously have got that music background, so sitting at the piano I still do. I love to go out, I love to enjoy like company, going to gigs, all that kind of stuff, but also things like journaling, doodling. I do clay work, I do all sorts of different things, writing music. Coding is something, and actually gaming, like going on the Xbox. I don't do it that much, but I bought an Xbox when I turned 40, and now and then I'll do a really like chill game like Ori or something. Yeah, Minecraft even.
I really don't know what that means. Oh my gosh, I need to educate myself on gaming.
Everyone's so different there, and that's just okay. It's okay, isn't it?
And the connect then. So what about the connect? How would you determine
Well,
that?
connection is that indicator of do I feel grounded? Do I feel connected to that person? Do I feel seen, soothed, secure? The thing that every infant is born with that need for. And we never grow out of that, do we? We always need that feeling of connection, because if we flip it, we can think, okay, where are the areas of disconnect within me right now? And there's some lovely areas that we can identify to maybe work with. And also just connecting with a community, being part of a community, might be having a therapist as well, but having some supportive people who just accept you for who you are, what's and all.
Amazing. We are coming towards the end of this conversation. I've really enjoyed it. I know we had a split in the middle of it as well, just for a moment, or a micro moment. Final thoughts, Debbie. I always ask like my guests just to think about something they want to share with the world out there, the audience that will listen to this, of course, but any final thoughts or motivational quotes or anything that you think will inspire people to want to play more? I'll throw that to you.
Well, one of the things I've really enjoyed doing is more in-person training again. And I'm still finding corporates are slightly resistant to this, because they're like, oh, but our team is spread out. Oh, but our team is spread out. But even if we do sort of workshops with just 10 to 20 people in that team, the value added when you can really sense that energy and you can get people together. And even what's becoming a bit more popular is going back to singing. People with all the research into music, getting people to come and sing and make sound together, or drumming workshops, those kind of things, they go down really well. And so I think I'm curious as to how that side of things, display and retreats, people are actually now going on in-person retreats again. So I'm excited about, where that's going to go, because people are realizing how powerful they are when they actually do get together and connect in person. So I don't know if you've enjoyed doing more in-person things too.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that straight away, because as soon as you said it, I was going, yeah, yep, 100%. And I really enjoyed getting back in the room with people. And there's something about it, isn't there? Virtual, you can deliver a message, but in the room you can connect to the people really well. And I think that's where you can see reaction and feel it. You can almost sense there's a different reaction virtually versus in person. I love being in the room with people. And we both said before this as well, we don't have a problem with standing up on stage and talking about subjects that we're truly passionate about as well. Give me a microphone and it's hard to get it off me. That's all I'm saying. I like the idea. Like
Well, just sending love to everyone, and just to say that you are absolutely loved, and you matter, and you do have a role to play in this society, and that we are all part of our communities. And it's never underestimate the impact that you've made in people's lives, and to not give up, because I don't know anyone that's not going through something pretty tough right now, and including me. But I'm all about finding tools that can keep us as well and balanced and loving and as we possibly can be. So yeah, sending love out there to your community, and thanks for having me on your show today.
That's amazing, honestly. Thank you for sharing, and I love that. As we listen to more people talking about their experiences and what they're doing and what they offer to the world, and we're learning and growing, and I think that is so important. I've realized for the last 7.5 years, every day I wake up I learn something new, and that's great, and I love that, and it energizes me. It definitely does. These conversations energize me. Debi, thank you so much for coming on. It was a bit of a surprise because I know you weren't expecting to do the recording straight away today, but you know what, we did it. It's been amazing, and I just want to send love to you and your family and your community and all the things that you're doing, because I know you're doing some amazing stuff, and I will encourage people to go and check out the work that you are actually doing, because we didn't get a chance to talk about everything that you've been involved with, and there is much you're doing that is just so amazing. So thank you. Keep doing it. You're doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
Take care.